Warning, the following program contains extreme coarse language and mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is extremely advised. Good evening. It is Talking Truth Tuesday. I am ADC, and there's probably some profanity, so that is why we have the extremely advised warning. That's usually from my extreme language, but I don't think these lovely ladies are going to have as bad language as I do, but who knows? But it's open. It is Talking Truth, and that's what we're here to do. And I'm just going to jump right in there and introduce our panel. We are talking AB Poli, AB Ledge, and all things Alberta Party. And who better to represent the Alberta Party than actual Alberta Party members? First, at the top of the box there, it's Carrie Condell. Carrie, welcome to Talking Truth.
Hey, thanks, Jared.
And Jenny is right above me there. It's like the Brady Bunch. It's awesome. And then Dr. Angela Grace is to the left of me or right of me, depending on where your screen is. Welcome, ladies, and thank you very much for joining us on Talking Truth.
Thank you for having us. Looking forward to the conversation, Dad.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, yes, like you said, we're going to jump in. First question that when we're talking Alberta Party and coming off of that 2019, there was a lot of momentum in 2019 going into the election. There was a chance to make some ground. I know with Greg leaving the leadership aspect, bringing in a replacement leader in Stephen Mandel was the choice from the party. And I know how it worked out, but that's one of the, from what I'm getting from some feedback from our viewers and just from connections in the province, how, as a potential voter for the Alberta Party, how do we ensure that we don't have another situation where it's someone like Steve Mandel that's been named the party leader and then who ends up not doing what they're supposed to do and then ended up working for the UCP afterwards?
Right. So I don't know about Carrie or Angela, but myself, I'm fairly new to the party. So the Steve Mandel legacy is sort of past, but I can tell you from Sue Timmonson, who's our current president for the party, I believe she was intending to join this, so perhaps she'll weigh in on some of the dialogue or hop into the call at some point here. But she was suggesting that, maybe she's joining us now. Perfect.
We've put Sue on. Hopefully, Sue, you can hear us.
I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Thank you for joining us, Sue. And yes, so if you've heard the question, it is one of those ones that for me personally, it was a concern, and I know other people are concerned about the Stephen Mandel situation and what's the Alberta Party's forward plan to not repeat that.
So, what part about Stephen being the leader are you hearing some pushback on? I knocked on thousands. I was a candidate in 2019, so I knocked on. I do not know why my camera's not working though.
That's okay.
I knocked on thousands of doors in 2019, and I did hear, I did get some doors that didn't like Stephen Mandel and the fact that he was part of us, that he was the leader, turned them off. But I have to say the vast majority looked at Stephen Mandel, and I think he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He gave us instant credibility on our ability to lead this province had we been chosen to do so and given that honor. So, I would argue that in that case, the credibility factor for the Alberta Party coming off of Greg Clark stepping away, which I didn't support, but I wish Greg had been able to stay there. I thought he'd earned the capabilities of doing that, or the right to be able to take us into the next election. That's not how it worked out. And Stephen allowed us to do that. And I know you mentioned that he took a role on AHS board after the election. And Greg Clark took a role actually after the election as well. And both of them took roles in areas that they felt they could still make a difference. So yes, technically working for the UCP, but actually from Alberta, Stephen Mandel's perspective, he was working for Alberta Health Services, which he was passionate about the healthcare file. He had been, as you know, he had been the Minister of Health for a short period of time before he was, before the by-election even, and after. And Greg Clark was passionate about the electricity file. And so he's working with the Alberta...
the balancing pool.
The balancing pool, thank you. And he was passionate about that. So they took positions where they could make a difference. And that's
right.
what a lot of the people in the Alberta Party, that's what we're here for, is because we believe we can make a difference in our province for the benefit of Albertans. So, are they representing the Alberta Party? Sort of. Are they doing it under the banner of the UCP? Yes.
So I don't mind weighing in. I was also on the provincial board preceding that leadership change. And like Sue, I did not want to see Greg step down. I thought he was a good leader, solid. I'm also the candidate in Calgary Elbow here and have Greg's endorsement. And part of the reason I got involved in the party in the first place was because of his integrity, his ethics, his competency, his compassion for people. His leadership is part of the reason I got involved in the first place. So I'll start with that. However, I have to give credit where credit is due. Stephen Mandel raised more money than the party had ever seen. It was approximately $500,000. It was also the first time the party had had a full slate of candidates, 87 candidates, and also significantly increased the vote for the Alberta Party. So when Greg was leader, it was around 2% provincially. And then when Stephen Mandel was leader, it was just over 9% provincially. So, and just under 200,000 votes across the province. Now, unfortunately, the votes weren't concentrated sufficiently in enough ridings to actually get some seats. And so I think if I reflect on that, I think, could we have done something different in terms of strategically looking at a couple of different ridings that we thought we had the best chance in and putting more resources, like Greg Clark's, for example, here in Calgary? Should we have all fallen in and supported his campaign? I think an argument can be made for that we should have done that. Because at the end of the day, we need seats in the legislature to make the difference and to be relevant as a political party. So that would be my brief thoughts on the change of leadership back in, I guess it was about 2018.
Excellent. And no, and I do appreciate those points, and I do agree on that aspect, especially with Greg. I mean, Greg, always transparent. I tell people I'm transparent. Prior to registering with the Elections Alberta as the political third-party advertiser, due to my stance against Jason Kenney at the time, I've had to let go of every political affiliation, but I was a member of the Alberta Party, a registered member of the Alberta Party when Greg was leader. So I do understand that it was a shock, but it is life. Like when people are you can't just, because no one's a professional politician. Well, okay, no one in the province right now is a professional politician. Is actually there to take care of their constituents. You've got the professional politicians currently just sitting there making warming up a seat, basically, or not even showing up. But like I said, the candidates that you guys had running for Greg and then going into Stephen's leadership, they were strong candidates. That's that, and it's disappointing too, the fact that looking at it, when I was looking at the Alberta Party, I grew up in Saskatchewan, so I grew up under the Grant Devine conservative, but was more of an NDP supporter at the time. Roy Romano got in as the NDP leader, and then mistakes were made. And I mentioned it, like Jenny was saying on past podcasts, the past shows. I mentioned McKinnon and what she did, being brought in to as a like the blue ribbon panel for the UCP, but she was brought into Saskatchewan prior. And because both my parents were medical professionals, worked in the now not non-existent hospital. It's now the Indigenous University in Regina, but they were working at the Plains Health Center, and they closed the Plains Health Center. That was one of McKinnon's suggestions, was to close the Plains Health Center because it had an asbestos situation. And then they were streamlining the healthcare from the rural center into the urban center and bringing that in. So we've seen that here in Alberta too. Like I'm in central Alberta, and we've seen our hospital, the Red Deer Regional, is just decimated. Like it can't handle the amount of patient care. It's just overflowing and bursting at the seams. And so when we're looking at it, when Greg was leader, and I saw a lot that wasn't NDP, but it wasn't straight conservative either. I saw a nice balance in what you guys were, what the Alberta Party was, and it was very similar to what the Sask Party was originally in its first, when they were the official opposition in Saskatchewan to Lorne Calvert's NDP. They were very community driven. I actually, before Scott Moe, I was based at a radio station in Rosetown, Kindersley. So we had the Swift Current was our flagship station. So of course we had the party leader was our person to speak to, and the government wouldn't speak to me. I used some of my talking truth to the premier. He didn't like that, so I was banned from talking to the premier. So I would just have the opposition come, and I would ask them questions. We get the press release, and I'd ask questions. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent here. The point being is the fact that the original Alberta Party, when Greg was the leader and when you guys launched, was very similar to that first edition of the Saskatchewan Party. And then I don't know if things changed. I mean, things aren't going to be the same because the ONG Calgary base is where the focus is going to be. It's not going to be an agricultural focus. It's going to be more oil and gas. So there's going to be a different way of doing things. But when Greg stepped down and he was going into where he was going, and Stephen came in, as much as there was the strength in having a named candidate, I think there was a little bit of the community driven or that local support lost in that process. Just from my observation and from feedback that I've gotten, was the fact that that's what was lost. That's where the concern was. It wasn't concerned about Stephen as a person. I think he's a good person. He's a good leader. He did great things well in Edmonton. He did great things, like I said, with his portfolio in health. He's done whatever he could under the current banner under AHS. It's a gong show. So, I mean, if he can get something done, as someone who sits as a volunteer on the board on both the PAC and the David Thompson Regional, for myself, I know the struggles it is to actually get things done. I was hoping that with the new stuff, it would change. But so when we're looking at that's a big thing for. I mean, healthcare is huge in this province. I mean, we're seeing today's announcement about acquiring 5 million doses of children's Tylenol, which as a parent that couldn't find it for months, I'm all for that. But it's very it's like the finger in the dam. Like eventually something's going to burst. Like you can't keep doing that. So when we're looking at what's the Alberta Party going to do that's different than what we're seeing either from the current government or the Notley NDP that wants to be the government?
So there was a lot to unpack there. So if you don't mind, I just want to.
For
Oh.
a sec here. Oh, go ahead, Jenny.
Sorry, Angela. I was just
No,
going to
go ahead, Jenny.
offer.
It's all good.
Okay. So a couple things. You mentioned Steve Mandel. So we have Barry Morishita, who's our current leader in place. So to me, you talked about community. You talked about getting back to grassroots or having candidates. The sense of community and candidates. So I can assure you that that is definitely the leadership that Barry Morishita is offering us. So Barry is. I don't know if you're aware of his background, but he was most recently the two-time mayor of Brooks, and before that, the president of the Municipalities Association. So Barry has a ton of experience in terms of seeing on the floor efforts trying to be carried out within the municipalities but handcuffed, let's say, from the provincial level. So I think this is a huge opportunity for the Alberta Party to have a candidate that has seen how policies have played out at the municipal and the city level and is able to now inform that back into the provincial government. And then I'll just offer before Angela hops in here, from my point of view, in terms of what the difference that the Alberta Party offers in the two parties we're seeing on either side of the aisle is this sense of right. We're trying to come to a place where we can take the best of both sides and have some collaboration and accountability in government. So we're trying to, you asked me offline in advance of this about Barry congratulating Jason Kenney. We're not about bashing people. We're about trying to solve problems. So I would say that's where we're really trying to make sure that we bring some collaboration and a sense of, we can take the best of both sides, both ideas, and come to a place where we can have solutions that are best for all Albertans, not just a select few. That's my sort of lead in. And sorry, Angela, please go ahead.
No, all good. Thanks, Jenny. I'm new to the Alberta Party, and my journey came from not paying attention to much at all. Yeah. And then the curriculum in March 21. I'm an educator. I'm a psychologist. I worked in draft and reviewed it from an expert perspective. When the 2020, I was absolutely appalled. So my due diligence, as an expert,
Angela,
I wrote
you're
of it.
cutting
I
in and
sent it
out.
to my MLA, but actually, am I?
Yeah.
Shoot, I wonder if I should pop out and try again, or actually let me start see anything different.
No worries.
How about is that better?
Yeah, that's coming through better, I think. Nope.
That's better. So, yeah. So basically, after they were elected in 2019, I met with MLA hopping
Nope.
to.
No, you're still clipping.
And then it turns out it wasn't. I'm not coming through.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
I will log out and come in.
Thank you, Les. Appreciate that, and we'll take that time to show. It was great points, Les Sorensen. Thank you for joining us. The Tylenol. We were talking about the Tylenol that was captured. It is apparently from Turkey and hasn't been approved by Health Canada, and so we're looking at least several weeks away. The federal purchase supplies will be here first, and I'm not surprised. I'm trying to learn from you, you ladies, to be more polite and be more diplomatic. It's very hard right now because all I'm seeing right now is someone trying to buy an election. From your Danny Bucks to your we're going to put Bill 1. We're really going to be a fascist dictatorship. Oh, wait, no, you actually caught us on doing that. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to actually listen to Albertans and see how you would like things to go. And then we're going to Tylenol is a huge thing, and we're going to do this, and we're pulling back on all these things. It's like closing, what is it, the closing the gate after the horses escaped, that sort of thing. And that's how I feel that the current UCP government is doing. I didn't think Jason Kenney did I didn't think he did a good job at all. I mean, you can go back and see some of my posts. They were less than polite on that one. Oh yeah, okay. So calling out the lies is our responsibility, and I agree with that, Les, 100%. There is that is the thing. We need to call it the lies. Other people have to do that, because I'm just going to come out and call it out angrily. So I'm glad that we have this conversation so we have your response, because like I said, if you watch my past videos, it gets angry. But
it's good to be angry, and there's absolutely there's nothing bad about being angry, because there's lots to be angry about, and that's the reality. Yeah. And it's just the response that we have to give. And you're right. I think they're buying the election. Absolutely. It's been done by every government ever in the 6 months previous to. That's where they save their spending money. And it just so happens that we've got a lot of spending money available. So they're going to show all that good stuff and hope that we've forgotten all the bad stuff. What we try not to do is make it only about what they're doing, and trying to turn the conversation about what the Alberta Party would do differently. Some of it's not 100% different. Going out and finding a place to get Tylenol, awesome. Give credit where credit's due, but call out the crap that comes out as well. And that's okay. But you can do it in a way that doesn't put you in a confrontational position.
That's right.
And that's what we try to do from an Alberta Party perspective. It needs to be, and heavens, I hate this word, collaborative, but
I say cooperative. It seems to be the better term. Like we're looking at a co-op. Technically, what the NDP was originally, when we're looking at the when it was the federated under that. That's basically what I would be looking for, is a cooperative response. And yes,
and cooperation is key, because we have to work together in order to get things done properly. And there's nothing wrong with taking ideas from both sides of the aisle, all sides of the aisle. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea, no matter where it came from. That is 100%. What I live by. And
excellent.
The problem with the polarization and the two sides is they don't want to give credit where credit is due. And that's fundamentally wrong, and it's fundamentally anti-democratic. That's what it is. You need to cooperate to make it better.
100%.
And I
go ahead, Jenny.
Sorry, I was just going to offer to your point about the Sovereignty Act. We've had from the municipalities that they do not want a provincial police force. There's been no request of a Alberta Revenue Agency or an Alberta pension plan. So the struggle I have with that is we do want to talk about healthcare, we do want to talk about education, and we do want to talk about livability in this province. So that is affordability and environment, right? So no, we don't have to collaborate for the sake of collaborating. The Sovereignty Act is not something that, the Alberta Party is supportive of in principle. So to me, and it's because we're trying to respond to what Albertans are expecting. Sorry, I'm reading Les's question as I'm going on here. I think this is the problem we're seeing, is we're not seeing collaboration from either side of the aisle right now, and that's the sort of void we want to sort of promote, enforce, like not enforce, but promote and what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, promote is probably the best thing I can offer in that space. Yeah.
And on Les's point there, I 100% agree that you won't get cooperation from the UCP, but you sure as heck won't get cooperation from the Notley NDP as well. They play
you won't get cooperation if you don't ask.
Well,
Somebody's got to start that process. And you're right. I don't think that would be an easy transition. But if you're not, from an Alberta Party perspective, if we're not asking, if we're not offering to say, hey, let's work on this together to make it better, then it's never going to happen. And that's what's going on right now. Nobody wants to be the first person to put a hand out.
100%.
Yeah,
And
but
yeah, go ahead, Carrie.
I do think there is space
So,
to be assertive
question.
and to speak firmly on issues. For example, I'm just looking at Holly Standing Ready's her comments here with respect to the Sovereignty Act, and getting back to what Jenny was saying earlier, for me and for many in the Alberta Party, it's about listening. If you start with listening, so for example, Indigenous communities, First Nation leaders communities have clearly stated that this is an affront to their hope for sovereignty and the definition of sovereignty. And if we're truly interested in truth before reconciliation, which is what Holly often speaks to, then there has to be some listening. And as far as I can tell so far, and I will speak firmly on this because this is a huge problem, it does not appear that the current party in government is doing that listening. And so that's a problem because it's representative democracy. And if we have people in government in those positions who are committed to truth and reconciliation, then that's the first thing they would do, would be to listen. And that hasn't happened.
100%. And agree with Holly's point there. It feels like a remake of the movie Mean Girls. Everything that we see right now in the Alberta political landscape is a bad 90s or 2000s bad movie, teen drama, whatever the case may be. And unfortunately, it looks like if things continue to go the way it goes, we're going to be into miniseries like The Handmaid's Tale and those sort of things with the way the circumstances are. I'm just going to jump in because Dr. Grace, thank you for rejoining us. Apologize for taking over the conversation, but we're going to give you the floor here and let you finish the point you had prior to technical difficulties.
Actually fits in with what Sue was saying and Les's question as well about collaborate. It's exactly my story. 2009, that fall, I understood that Jason Kenney had said going to shred the curriculum. That's my area of expertise. So I'd meet with my as a, and at that time I thought it was a conversation. He's forward and
you've got this is why we I'm pushing for high-speed internet across the province, because when you get into the dark spots, it is and thank you, Les. The audio is still cutting out. We totally understand that and apologize for this because Dr. Gray, you have some valid points here, and I understand when you can't get, you have something you have to say and you can't get it out because of circumstances. So we're hoping that we can get through this and be able to hear you and have that.
Yeah, let's try this. Is this headset better?
Yeah, it seems to be okay.
Is this better?
It's still freezing at the end.
Try.
Still freezing.
Let's try.
Okay, so okay, I'll try a different computer. I'll try again.
Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Grace.
Thank you, Dr. Grace. So Jenny, you had a point here. I'm
sorry. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun on your, but I see Les asked a great question, which is at what point do we take what we haven't heard and make it firm policy? So I think, Les, to your point, we had, because of the by-election, we took the opportunity to focus our efforts on that, and we delayed our policy convention. And so that is what's occurring this coming weekend. And so what I'm expecting to come out of that is some firm positions and some firm policy that people can see and know that there are some teeth here, and that this is a party that has a plan and not just, you know, using an opportunity to argue with the other side. We have some firm policies that I'm excited to discuss this weekend and get out to the public so that we can finally, you know, people know what we stand for.
And the other thing was the Calgary Northwest shouldn't be a dark spot. So is that the comment on the internet? Is that just? I'm not
assuming
from Calgary,
that's where Dr. Angela Grace lives. So I'm assuming that's what Les meant.
Hey.
not my candidacy. I hope that's not what he.
Can I respond to Les's most recent?
100%. Yeah.
About there being no agenda room for current issues, and that's you're referring to the policy conference and AGM that's this weekend. And you're right, Les, there isn't. Those policies were all submitted and developed and submitted through our constituency association, individual members, our shadow policy group, and so they were submitted before, by the first week in September, I think was the deadline. But that doesn't mean that the current issues won't end up being part of our conversation and part of our platform development. We have a few different tools that we're going to use to be able to do some of our platform development and fill the gaps, because there were certainly some gaps that were pointed out. The by-election was a very interesting time, and frankly, it was a gift to the Alberta Party to have that by-election in our leaders' constituency. It gave us a dry run, if you will. It gave us an opportunity to see where those policy gaps are, to understand what we have to answer and what we have to fill. And man, it gave us a platform for 28 days that we would not have had with a lot of the media in earned media. Our earned media was up over 700% in those 28 days. So we had and you're right, and she creates issues every day she speaks. So we have to be fluid, we have to be flexible. We are looking at how to fill those gaps and doing some member engagement and broader engagement, frankly, on our platform development. So that's the next step after we come out of policy, but those gaps won't be filled this weekend.
Excellent. And Dr. Grace, you have rejoined us. You're coming through clear. I'm hoping everything is good now.
Well, I'm on my phone now, so hopefully this works. Is this better already?
Phone always works better.
Okay.
We've got great cell service in this province, but the internet service.
Well, the internet service is good. I think it's my headset, so
okay.
I'll have to play with that.
Good.
Anyway, back to my little story. Is I met with Jason Copping about the curriculum. Thought it was a collaborative meeting. Like I was impressed. I did my due diligence. It's good. But then when the curriculum came out in March 2021, I was completely appalled. So then again, I did my due diligence. I wrote a review. I submitted it to my MLA and the ATA and a couple school divisions, and I really expected collaboration. I thought, I'm an expert in this area. I want to be part of it. Jason Copping told me I would be part of it. But when it came out and I wasn't part of it at all, I called him again and I'm like, Jason, what happened? And he forgot. He just forgot. And so what we have now is a curriculum, and especially my area is the phys ed and wellness part, that is a complete nightmare. With zero collaboration on it. And yes, they paused part of it, but we still have a curriculum that is very, very poor. A few weeks ago, I went to Jason Copping's town hall and asked about it again. And he said, well, people have stopped talking about it. People have stopped emailing me and phoning about it. So it must be okay. So what they are doing is the exact opposite of collaboration, is they are wearing out us advocates. They are wearing out parents, because who wants to keep writing and phoning about the exact same issue? And there is no collaboration. There is none at all. And it's shocking to me. Like there's so many areas that I could have helped, that I know other mental health experts, other educational experts, other health experts. Like, people are begging for collaboration. Like, you know, if you look on Twitter, and I know it's a cesspool and there's some pretty awful things, but what Albertans I see are asking for is to be heard. So like what Jenny said, or what Jenny said before about listening. People want to be heard, they want to be understood, and they want their ideas taken forward. And what there's been a brick wall. I mean, Jason Coppian handed out earplugs at the beginning, and they stayed in the entire time. Another thing that he said is that he believes that that reform needs to happen quickly and without consultation. So decisions were made without any consultation, and then they were passed, and we were bowled over. In this regard, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but that's okay. The pause that we had during staying home from COVID was actually a gift for our province now in terms of democracy, because we got to see the nightmare that was happening that otherwise most people would not have been paying attention to. I know for a fact I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I thought I did my due diligence. I thought it was good. But because I was home a lot more, paying more attention to the news, I realized and started advocating for what was happening. And against what was happening. So it was a gift. And I agree with what Sue said, is Danielle Smith, you know, hijacking Brooke's Medicine Hat and Barry's constituency in a by-election is actually a gift, because people can now see what is going to happen, and they get a second chance to make a better choice and a different choice in, hopefully, May of 2023. So, and then there's my experience with the NDP. I thought, well, I CC'd everything to the NDP because I'm like, well, they're the opposition. But I also don't see collaboration there. What I see there are policies being made in opposition to what the UCP are doing. But I'm not convinced there's actual collaboration there either, because there hasn't been. You know, when you're standing there as an advocate, offering, guess who's the only leader of a party that called me and asked me to be a part of things? And that was Barry.
Yeah.
Like, they asked me advice about curriculum and mental health and what they should be doing. And so I got to help advise on policy for a party that's not yet in office. And from what I've seen, yes, our policy convention is this weekend, but from what I've seen is they're logical, straightforward, waiting. Like, all those people who want to collaborate, we are just waiting. We are waiting for it. But right now we're all volunteers.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. And I just want to address Les's comment here. Imagine what Jason Kenney could have done if COVID didn't slow them down. Unfortunately, Les, Jason Kenney, and you can go onto my TikTok or go into last week's episode there where I talked about and showed the TikTok that I did in June of 2021. So like about 18 months ago, of how Jason Kenney used COVID and the Emergency Act to put through more bills and more laws and take over the power of Alberta, without any sort of debate, any sort of like this whole thing of like this Bill 1 and the Sovereignty Act. I'm going, they've already used it. They are, like, if you go and look at the bills that were passed, the Emergency Act has changed the rules. The Police Act has been changed. Basically, they could go and put a Gestapo in play as long as they have the people that are part of the panel of or the advisor group, which is all UCP members currently, they can change these laws. And this is what I've been trying to tell people, is the fact that under COVID, they took control. They took the power. So Danielle Smith doing this now is just her just showing her cards a bit. He's been, Kenney and the UCP have done this for whatever. And the biggest one that really scares the hell out of me when you're talking about, Dr. Ace, when we're talking about May 2023, I don't know if anyone can beat the UCP in 2023, because with Bill 81 and all the changes they made to the Elections Act, they took away a number of checks and balances that Elections Alberta had to withhold or uphold. And right now, the chief operating officer of Elections Alberta reports directly to the justice minister. There is no go-between anymore. So when you had the elections officer prior, there was a go-between, and it was an actually independent third party. Now that they've taken that away, and Kenny removing him and removing that position and making Glenn Ressler the guy, he's directly reporting to the justice minister, which is now Chandro. And I had that when you looked at the chain of command for on Elections Alberta's website, they had two when you click on the map of where things go, they had two, and I actually found the old one and I saved it because I know we're going to have to probably use it down the line. The fact that with the Elections Act the way it was, you had to have an intermediate, someone in between the electoral officer and the governing party. With Bill 81, they changed that rule, and then they changed everything to American. The language that's used now for the upcoming election is all the American languages. So they've taken out the they're now it's polling station. It's now all these different things that are Americanized. So when you're saying what he could have done during COVID, yeah, I'm sorry, they did it, and I'm sad that more people, like you said, that they're creating new issues to distract from the old ones, and that's my biggest frustration I have right now with anyone that's supporting the NDP, is the fact that you bring up something like, you know what, the Elections Alberta is not as independent as they're claiming, and they're going, well, we'll be better off with Rachel in 2023. I'm going, well, how can Rachel get in if the deck is stacked for the UCP? Like if they've changed the laws, like what kind of system allows you to buy memberships for a party that you're not part of to elect a leader who then comes in and runs, like you said, steals Brooks' medicine hat without any opposition, because the fact that you're going for the radical right to get into power. So when you're elected by less than 1% of the province, I say not my premier, and I'm not just saying it to cause a stir. I literally say you weren't elected. You were chosen by who chose you. You weren't elected by the populace.
Well, I think what Les offered, and I think Angela said it as well, is COVID really gave us this view into it, right? It sort of brought all of that to the surface where we saw it, like the coal policy was rolled out on the Friday of a long weekend, and yet we were all still very aware of it.
Everything was rolled out on a Friday, Jenny.
Yeah, that's right.
Every decision was rolled out on a Friday or during the summer when no one was paying attention. Like, wow, that's a strategy. And the Alberta Party will not do that strategy.
Yes. But to your point, we were all, because of COVID, we were all hyper-focused, and all those things were reversed, right? And that's, to Les's point, this is why it didn't happen. And I agree. You look at how few votes that have gotten this premier in office. It's a scary thing when you look at it, but I do believe that Albertans see this for what it is. And the other thing, I'm from the energy sector. We didn't do a run it through of who we are, but I think it's important to mention, like I'm a geophysicist. I've been in the oil industry for over 20 years. And, I've watched the market dictate the expectations in terms of carbon and emission reduction and closure expectations. It hasn't been, as much as the UCP wants us to believe, this isn't a Justin Trudeau decision. This is a market decision. This is a worldwide problem. We have a massive responsibility in this province as energy leaders. And so to me, this is, I believe that Albertans are very wise to what's going on and very concerned. I think, Carrie can attest to this at the doors. And I've heard plenty of people say that they're very aware of what's going on and very uncomfortable with that. And that's in Calgary, where we're at the heart of the energy sector, right? So I'm hopeful that we do have, but not just hopeful without strategy. I mean, to me, it's about getting our message out, being very clear and consistent, which has been quite refreshing, easy to be with a leader that we have in Barry, and that he is very consistent and very, honest. We're not in a position, as the Alberta Party, we are not in a position where we are looking out for one group of people. We are looking out for all Albertans. We are not in a position where we're going to have to backtrack on what we say, because again, we're aiming for everyone. That's our aim, right? And so I think that's a big, piece that we have to make sure we get clear out to the public. So I'll let others speak now. Thanks.
I'll add on to that, Jenny. So one example that shows the difference between the three parties is the Calgary Pride Parade. So the UCP were not accepted into the Pride Parade. There's clear reasons why. The NDP made a big deal out of being accepted into the Pride Parade, had a ton of volunteers, orange shirts, everybody, smiling and part of the parade. And then there's the Alberta Party that was there. We were there supporting, but it was not about us. It was about the people who the Pride Parade is for. So Jenny and Carrie marched. I was on the side with my husband and my church, and we celebrated. We celebrated Pride for what it was, not a political statement for a party, but for the people who deserved to walk and wanted to walk in Pride. So we were there, just not making a big deal. And that's what I find in talking with Barry and talking with Jenny and talking with Holly, talking with Sue, talking with Carrie. It's about how can we just be practical people, practical Albertans with ideas, listening to each other and solving problems that need to be solved. And then not making a big deal out of our status. We just want to do the work and help people. It's not about when did being a politician become about being a celebrity where it's all about me, because it's not. It's about Albertans and the people we represent. And if we can do a good job, then that's what the Alberta Party is about.
100%. And I mean, that is not to toot my own horn or whatever, but that's the whole thing about this talking truth. This isn't about, yes, it's about me being angry because it's actually a place to vent. So my wife doesn't have to listen to me yell all the time about current circumstances and all that stuff, because it's just, but it's about, my goal here is to bring on other voices. I mean, this is why I reached out to Holly, why I reached out to your group there. I wanted to provide the opportunity to have that voice where you're not getting that, where other people, it's about real talk. It's about whatever ego that is driven. And yeah, we all have ego. I mean, you can't, we all have biases, we all have egos, but like you were saying, Dr. Grace, that this is about coming together. And so far, what you guys are saying about the Alberta Party is fantastic in regards of that's what's needed. That's when we're looking at a relevant opposition, and we're not talking about opposition leader, we're not talking about any of this other stuff. We're talking about representation in the legislature. So I'm not saying, hey, the Alberta Party is going to take over and whatever, because I mean, you can't rebuild things immediately. It's going to take time. But I would love to see one or two or a handful of your candidates get in and have representation. I mean, my ultimate goal, if we're looking at, I would say I'm transparent, my ultimate goal for the election is to see an NDP minority government. That's it. I don't want a majority government, but I sure as heck don't want the UCP having any power. But if the NDP get in, I want it to be minority, so then they are kept in check, because absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it doesn't matter which party. Like you said, when you have party politicians that are playing, it's their ego. Like I love the fact that when we're talking here, number one, Barry is welcome to come on the show at any time. Barry, we're not saying don't come on. I don't ever want to talk to a leader. Absolutely, on a future episode.
I thought this was a girls only thing.
Well, this one tonight is for sure. But
you know, and that's it, Darren. I like in listening, like Barry is so sincere. He really is. And I think that's it, is that he's such a quiet person that, and the media is also, I'm going to say the media is also to blame right now, because they only focus on who's in power in the opposition. Well, now's the time to contact everybody. You know, should be contacting Barry, should be contacting Jordan Wilkie at the Green Party. Like, let's get everybody's perspective in the media now, so that people can start to make decisions as to where they want to go. And for, you know, I agree, the UCP is not united. I think, like, I look at my parents, we were PC. And so I believe that the majority of Albertans who voted UCP saw the word conservative and just went with it. But let's face it, we do not have a conservative government right now. We have a Wild Rose gone rogue government that is taking over on such little, you know, they weren't elected. Like, Wild Rose was not elected, but that's who's running our province right now. And it is really scary. So, you know, the NDP think they're going to take over everything and everyone's going to vote for them just to get the UCP out. But I'm sorry, voting against what you don't want is not going to get you what you do want. So that's where the Alberta Party comes in as the only logical choice for moderate people who want conservative fiscal spending. We have to use our tax money and our resources wisely, and progressive moving forward, because this is the world we live in. We need our kids to have critical thinking. We need people to be involved in committees. Okay, so I'm going to swear. People need to quit bitching on Twitter and get into the committees and get behind the candidates that they want to see elected.
Yeah.
You're not going to get what you want by voting against what you don't want.
Yeah,
you have to stand behind someone.
Yeah, I would just add too, there's a real significant distinction between the Alberta Party and the two other parties, particularly with Barry's leadership. Number one, what I see with the other parties, and I think there's sufficient evidence to support this, both are very top-down hierarchical kinds of organizations. There's very leader-centric, very leader-driven, and they're very much about a handful of people calling all the shots. And then anybody else who signs up to be a candidate is essentially a salesperson for the leader or the party. So we don't see candidates or sitting MLAs challenge their leaders or sometimes take a different viewpoint in the best interests of their constituents. We see a lot of silence and a lot of people towing a line. And that's also very dangerous for democracy.
Very, yes.
Representative democracy requires local candidates. And that's what I appreciate about Barry. He's not interested in a micromanagement kind of style of leadership. It's about empowering people to do their best work, to be the best representative they can, to provide local representation, to be authentic. And Jenny will tell you how many times he's told her, look, now that doesn't mean we're completely undisciplined and we'll go way off. We can have lots of conversations over coffee amongst ourselves when we do have disagreements, but he welcomes differences. He wants to hear different points of view. And that's very different than what we're seeing with the two other parties that are really focused just on power and a really top-down kind of structure.
Yeah, we need to have this feedback loop, this expectation that there is. So to me, it's about being inclusive first. It's about getting uncomfortable with people first, right? It's not about trying to satisfy everyone. It's about trying to intake everybody's different and valuable point of view to inform policies that are most representative. And what we have right now is this expectation on both sides of the aisle, as Carrie's saying, where it is follow the leader first, and then eventually at some point you're going to offer something different, and that just is not possible. That is you can't get difference after you've asked somebody to conform. You have to allow somebody to be themselves. And of course there is an expectation, as Sue has just offered me, eventually we come to a place where the party can put together policy pieces that will come out, and we're supportive because we've gained that momentum and that understanding of our valuable perspectives that right now we're absorbing through this process.
Well, and to add on to that, my perspective is that the Alberta Party is returning to what true democracy is listening to people, looking at the science, looking at listening to the experts, and arriving at policy decisions that are going to benefit the greatest amount of people. For example, a small thing but a big thing. So they took so for victims assistance, so for people who've been in a violent crime, it was 2 years reporting before, and this government, so Jason Copping, moved it to 45 days. Well, I know as a trauma psychologist that people are often in shock, especially with sexual assaults and major violent crimes. 45 days is barely enough time to wrap your head around it. And so these loopholes have taken away important services for people. And I firmly believe that our resources need to be used in the best way possible, A, to protect the land, and B, to serve Albertans. So I'm just going to show you just for a sec here. So this has become my hobby over the last couple of years. And so I've started doing a lot of reading. And this book, Reimagining Government by Christopher Wilson, is spectacular. So it's published in 2018. And he talks about the fall of democracy and the rise of populism then. And we're living it right now. Actually, Christopher and I are talking about doing a video series to teach people about what it is to lose democracy, what it is with this promise of populism where one person, one leader has the answer for everybody. Well, and it's garbage. It's garbage. One person does not have all the answers, but collectively we do.
This is a great point. Sorry, Angela, I just want to jump in on that because so again, energy background, and my last 2 years I focused on liability policy. And I did an exercise, took a complex decision-making course, and one of the first thing they asked you to do in this course was to identify your problem space. So I started, okay, so this is an interdepartmental problem. Nope, this is an entire company problem. Nope, this is an industry-wide problem. Nope, this is a government problem. This is a regulator problem. This is a stakeholder problem. So when you think about liability, it's an everybody problem. Right? This isn't even limited to the energy sector problem. It's in the medical system, it's in the environment, it's in education, right? So like Dr. Angela Grace is saying, this isn't a problem one leader can solve. And that's where, getting back to this comment about Barry being compassionate towards Jason Kenney, I agree with you. There's a lot of things that Jason Kenney created that are being continued under Danielle Smith. But at the end of the day, one person cannot solve the problems for the entire province. We need to get back to a place where we allow for informed decision-making, informed policy-making, so that we're not in this place where we have leaders that can just yell at each other, because the job cannot get done that way.
Absolutely. And my thing is with Jason Kenney, it's a personal thing. I don't like what they did. I'm very disgusted on that whole COVID how you basically killed thousands of our fellow citizens of this province and then skated away to Ontario for greener pastures, because that's basically what a career politician does, is they'll come in and do their damage and then get the hell out. I mean, I can go deep into the weeds, IDU, Stephen Harper. I mean, we could go right into it, but we're not going to go that because we're trying to be positive tonight. But that, like I said, that's my issue. That was my concern with Barry coming out and saying that. But with you explaining that, I appreciate that. Because the fact that you see Rachel Notley, or you see the other of these people that are basically automatically, it's time, I got to tweet out my congratulations or thank you for your service or whatever, which gets to that point where yes, you have to show respect to collaborate, but no, we shouldn't be teammates. Like, if you're ultimately your decisions are killing people, I shouldn't stand by and watch you do that. I shouldn't just go and argue with you in the legislature and do performative politics because that's what looks good on the news. I should stand outside the legislature saying, no, I'm not going to put up with this crap. And if you're not going to do anything about it, we have to do something as a society and not just sit back and watch you do that.
Well, you just said the exact reason why I'm becoming more and more involved is I will not stand back and watch this happen. I want to be involved and do something. And that's what I see with the Alberta Party. It is a group of sincere, logical, professional, passionate people who want to step in and do something and do the right thing and listen. So it's fascinating to me, like, because I've done advocacy for education and mental health, and I'm listening to Albertans. I have email after email and message after message with all of these brilliant ideas of what needs to happen. And my hands are tied because I'm not in anything yet. Like, I'm an advocate. All I can do is say, this is great, now send it to your MLA. And maybe something will happen, but we all know nothing is happening because they're shoving everything aside. So we're ready. And that's just it. The Alberta Party, we are small, but we are ready and we are eager and we want to do the work. And that's the exciting part. Like what you've seen with Jenny and I cutting each other off a little bit. This is what conversations are like. It's excited, it's passionate. We have things to share, and it's listening. Like when Jenny and I drove to Medicine Hat to door knock for Barry during the by-election. Did we even take a breath of air, Jenny?
No, you had said you were going to take a nap, and I thought, how's that going to happen? And sure enough,
I really needed a nap, and it didn't happen.
No. Yeah, like, and sorry, Carrie, please say you were offering before this thing started, like like Carrie is a human rights lawyer, these are, Angela has developed policy. We are people that are truly incapable of sitting on the sidelines. Like, I've had people say to me, why on earth would you jump into the fray with the political environment that we have right now? And it is not a choice, in my opinion. I'm in a place where this is my future, my kids' future, the future of my grandchildren, 7 generations, as Holly would say, and as Dr. Angela Grace always says as well. And so this is more about trying to make sure that we create a space where people know that there is a place for people that want to come together and want to actually solve problems rather than just blame someone for where we're at. I've been a part of the problems that we have in Alberta. Like, this is where I go back to not trying to point blame, because we need to just move forward. We need to own what we know, our lived experience, and what we've seen in this province and what is not working, and be willing to come forward with our ideas and with those that are unable to speak. I heard in your podcast, you said you want the ones without a voice to be speaking, and that's who we're trying to be. We're the ones that haven't had a voice and want to make sure that people like ourselves and others that have a valuable knowledge base and passion to solve problems come forward and actually represent what people want to see in this province. So,
Jenny, you say something really, really important there. Who do you want to see? Like, who represents your values? And I know for myself as a voter, I I want to trust my MLA to look after my best interests and everyone. And I want them to make good decisions, and I want them to listen. And so I want to trust my MLA, and I cannot trust the UCP, and I cannot trust someone who is a face, like who's just a friendly face for a big party. I want someone with substance and grit that is going to do the work. And so that's why I joined with the Alberta Party, because I do see this party as the future. Perhaps not this election, but that's what, Barry and Jenny and Carrie and Sue and I've talked about, is we're starting, you started off the conversation tonight talking about the previous members of the Alberta Party. And what we need to do is look forward to who's there now, what are they bringing to the table now, and what is the vision for the future. So we're not just in it for a short period of time. We are building for the future of this province and for the next 7 generations, because what we do now impacts them.
And that comes, sorry, Carrie, I'll let you finish us off here, but talking about legacy and talking about long-term planning, that's one of the ways that you stop the buying an election, the short-term spending, the saving everything till the 3.5 years in for all the good news stuff. If you're planning long-term, you don't have to do that. If you're planning for the future and your kids' future and your grandkids' future, you don't have to do that. And I will say what I think this May 2023 election will be about. It's trust. Who do you trust? Because right now there is not a lot of trust in our government, and there is not a lot of trust in our opposition. And we want to be able to earn that trust from Albertans, because I think that's what people are going to be looking for. The word salad that goes out on all of the things during elections, they don't matter. What matters is the individuals and who you can trust to do the job and represent you properly. And that's what we're going to try to make this election about, because I think it's what people are looking for. So, Carrie, I interrupted you, so I'm going to hand it over.
Yeah, and part of it's the system structure, right? We're in a first past the post. We're in a deeply polarized political environment. So we are seeing apathy, and typically by-elections do have a low voter turnout. And I think we saw that in Brooks Medicine Hat. It was just over 30%. And at the doors, unfortunately, I have heard people say that they're not happy with either of the options, and they are considering not voting at all. And so we have to rise to the challenge to say, as other speakers tonight have said, is you don't have to vote against something. You don't have to stay home. We have to rise to the challenge and say, we've been listening to you over several months. That's what's informed the platform and the policy. And now we're giving you something to vote for. And the things that I'm hearing at the doors is about a sustainable healthcare system, including mental health treatment. That has come up over and over and over again. And, affordability and economic issues, those come up too. But the issues are almost on par. And that's why I think it's going to be a very interesting election, because typically when the social issues are dominating, top of mind for people, that favors the NDP. And when economic issues are top of mind, jobs, economy, pipeline, that often favors a Conservative Party. We're in an interesting space now where both social issues and economic issues are almost equally top of mind. And that likely will hold to the spring. And so what will people do? We could see the closest election we've ever seen in Alberta's history. So I think the opportunity for the Alberta Party is, if we do get some seats, there's a real chance, a viable chance, that we could hold the balance of power and be incredible game changers for the future of our province. Because any legislation, bills, policy would need that input from Alberta Party representatives. So although we're a small party, I think we have the opportunity here to play a very big role, and do what Greg Clark did, which was to sort of, serve above our weight, serve above our size, and make a real difference.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Carrie. And holding what you said about this as a game changer, it has to be a game changer. It has to be, because what you said about both economics and social issues arising at the same time, we need to make some really wise decisions. So we need to slow down and think about things. We've already got our ideas of how we're going to proceed, but we're not going to create policies specifically until we've had the opportunity for that collaboration. And I've been sitting back hearing what people are saying, and it's the Albertans that have the ideas. We're just a funnel for it. Like, we don't have all the answers. We have some, and we have some ideas, but we're a funnel for our constituents, for Albertans to help create the Alberta that we value and we stand for. And I've heard so many people say, this is not the Alberta that I grew up in. This is not the politics I grew up in. This is, like I saw Dr. Joe Vipon say, this is not the society that I signed up for. And that's what we need to return to. Jenny talks about returning to kindness. Carrie talks about regaining trust and being a game changer. Sue says it's important that we go slow and look at the long game. So that's what we're doing now. No more short-term snap answers. It's what is wise, what is going to benefit people. And one of the things that I see happening, what Carrie talked about in terms of mental health, is we've got to get off this rage farming. For one example, I was privileged to win an award as a friend of education from Edmonton Public School Boards. So on one day I win this award, and on the next day I'm called these horrific names on Twitter for the exact same work. And so that's what we need to do, is just say enough. Let's go back to community, kindness, collaboration, and being good neighbors. That's all we are. We're good neighbors. We want to help people.
100%. And just to respond to some of our comments, Les is concerned that there's only 4 of us watching, and the 4 are Alberta Party supporters. So that's good. You have 4 supporters. But
this is going to be like those old shampoo commercials. You tell one person, and then they tell one person, and then all of a sudden there's going to be 1,000 people on the screen. And then if they each tell one person, then there's not many more. It's going to expand. It's going to grow.
What I could promise from my side is the fact that even though we're only seeing 4 live, there's a lot of stuff going on live right now. I know great friend and advocate and activist they were doing an online or a Zoom meeting for her advocacy group out of Calgary. So there'd be some strong supporters there. Other things are going on. Replays, like I said, this will be on the YouTube replay. It's also on Twitter. It's also on Twitch. I've got it on like 7 different channels. Facebook as well. We're live. Number one, because of the fact that corporate media will cut me off if they don't like my message. So I can't have just one stream going one place and us being cut off and having nowhere to have the conversation. But also being able to build the audience, and especially having a show like tonight where the conversation is not just me being angry, it's a conversation of actual the talking truth about the political status and what the Alberta Party could bring to the table, which no other, and I'll tell you, I'll pat myself on the back for that one, no other person or media outlet in this province has done that yet. I've seen someone have the Green Party candidate on, lots of NDP, lots of UCP, but I have not seen anyone come in and do a roundtable like we're doing here. And I invite everyone else. So if those that have the bigger platform than I do, number one, share this to everyone. Number two, invite these ladies on, invite Barry on to have this conversation. don't just sit here and nitpick on what the mainstream media is doing. Actually cover things, important things, as opposed to things that are bought and paid for. So that's where I could say from my side is the fact that we're going to continue to promote this. I'm going to utilize the AB_Polly Twitter account that I co-founded to continue to share these messages and your messages, and to get it out there, because I believe more people need to understand. Because all I hear is, like you were saying, Dr. Grace, well, all of you were saying, is the fact that I'm not, but the majority of people in the province are conservative. And all I hear is, oh, I'm a small c conservative. Well, if you're a small c conservative, you sure as hell ain't part of the UCP, because the UCP is a big C, and the C stands for corruption. And yes, but anyway, but if you're small c conservative, if you're looking at platforms, and you guys will be able to share more of this on this weekend on what's happening at the AGM, but this is the option. If you're a conservative in this province and you actually care about your fellow citizens and care about responsible government, and you care about the truth and care about Alberta, you care about Alberta health, it's not just dollars and cents. And people need to understand, and I feel like I'm a broken record because I say it all the time. The fact is that the current setup on how to do COVID, taking away all the COVID regulations, taking away all the supports, everything for COVID, that's killing the freaking economy. Like, when you hear the stories coming out of China saying that the Chinese population, the Chinese economy is going to overtake the Western economy in the next 5 years because the Western nations are losing their workers and losing their workforce due to long COVID, or unfortunately due to death based on COVID or complications from COVID. The fact that we're sitting here talking about, well, I don't want to wear a mask, or, oh, the vaccine is going to do this, just wear a mask, just social distance. If you can do a meeting like we're doing now, do it. If we can keep each other safe, do it. Figure out ways. I mean, we figured it out. The rich of the elite and the rich figured out how to do things and make money during the pandemic. It's not like it's not able to do it. They're choosing, they don't want to do it, and they're risking the lives of people just in turn for more profit.
It's a continuation of trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. That's something my partner always offers as. So, we had this progress, we had this, I call it the iceberg of ignorance that was sort of lifted as COVID came in, and we saw the problems surface as we had. And now we're trying to basically force that iceberg back, and you can't do that. Like you said, we know there's a way to be more progressive. We've talked about education right now. We have an opportunity to be utilizing online services to alleviate the problems that we're seeing in hospitals, and we're choosing not to do that for the sake of continuing the way life was before the pandemic. And so these are you're bringing up real points here, Darren, that we can't deny. But I do want to go back to what Carrie offered here recently, which is we're in this place where we can't choose anymore. We have this, we want to be fiscally responsible, but we also want to be socially progressive. And that is where the Alberta Party comes in. We're not having you choose between your head and your heart. We want you to align your head and your heart. And we want you to, and this is how we save money. This is how we eliminate waste. This is how we get into proactive thinking to help ensure that we're looking after all Albertans in what's best for everyone. And that is, fundamentally where we need to go to in this province, because we are a feeling species. As much as we want to try and deny that, we care about each other and we want each other to succeed. And we want to be, myself, I want to be on the side of knowing that I was looking out for the best interests of all Albertans and not on the best interests of the few, because ultimately that doesn't help me and it doesn't help those I'm trying to look out for. So, we want you know, this is to me the biggest opportunity. As Carrie said, we're in this place where Albertans are realizing they can't choose between those two things, and so this is the, you know, the huge opportunity to look to people like us that are bringing some reason, and, you know, as Ron has offered here in some of the comments, you know, we're trying to look to experts and lived experiences. Dr. Ellen Grace has said here too, you know, so that we're not, and increase transparency as well, so that we're not in a place where it's unknown and at the last minute there's a policy that's put out that people mostly disagree with, you know. So anyway, I'm ranting now.
Well, yeah, and so just an example of that. So let's talk about kids are really sick in schools right now. Our children's hospitals are overrun. Parents are worried. You know, I just talked with a neighbor today who's like, my 6-year-old is sick again. They've missed 6 weeks of school this year. So the UCP not listening to anybody, and now, you know, the Minister of Education and Danielle Smith saying, oh, well, we're not doing mandates at all. We don't believe in that. And no, schools can't go online. Well, the Alberta Party, in talking with Barry about the vision for it, it's saying we need to look at what are local problem solvers for local problems. So if we look to then, you know, Rachel Notley, she's not saying a single thing about masks in schools or anything to help. And I think that's to try to gain some popularity. However, the Alberta Party wouldn't put a mask mandate in, but it's saying if there are targeted, medically recommended prevention measures, then we will work with local schools, local school boards to determine what is the best action for their school. So if there needs to be short-term targeted mandates that parents, the majority of the school board are happy with, that makes sense and help prevent illness in kids, then that's a possibility. But it's not going to be this top-down mandates, no mandates, nobody's allowed this. Well, the context is different in every community. So we need to look at the rural context, the urban context, and even within that, there's going to be differences. So that's the difference, is we don't, from what I see, is the Alberta Party won't respond just
One size fits all.
Popular,
right?
yeah, it's not
No
one size fits all.
all.
That's why Barry's so big on local representation and collaboration. And that's what we're looking at. So that's just one example. So I'm not saying that that is what the Alberta Party would do in terms of masking in schools, like have a mandate or whatever, but I'm saying we would consult and make sure that it fits the local context. And I'm just going to be straightforward. This government is better at looking at lice policies in school than they are airborne respiratory illnesses that can have a tremendous long-term impact on the health, well-being of our kids and on their learning and also on their future ability. If kids have long COVID now, we don't know what the treatment is. So the Alberta Party really is looking at the long-term potential impacts of decisions and situations and issues that are happening now.
100%. I'll leave. So what's the Alberta Party's presence outside the city? So Calgary, Edmonton, most of you are based in that. Is that correct? What about, is there, I know you have representation on the board rurally because Mr. Your treasurer, I worked with him too. Anyway, I
John.
No, is it Shakurda? Miles? No. What?
Oh, Miles. Yes,
yeah.
He's our he's the secretary of the board. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in Red Deer. We have a good representation on the board right across the province, rural and bigger cities, and the urban stuff. Our presence, you know, it's interesting. Barry's talked to a lot of the rural municipalities because of his experience with Alberta municipalities. and being the president there. So he's very familiar with a lot of the mayors and a lot of the communities there. So he's been doing a lot of traveling, probably not in the last couple of months, but certainly all summer and last year, across the province to talk to the leadership people, the leadership groups that are in these rural communities, because it's important, as we said, local representation, but also some local authority and local decision making, helping. Not one size fits all. Southern Alberta is not the same. Medicine Hat's not the same as Fort McMurray. So let's make sure we're making decisions that make sense from places. You're right, Ron. Sorry, he's from Lacombe.
Yeah, it's Miles Shakurda. Yes, and yeah. I apologize, Miles, if you're watching this. We were chalking outside MLA Orr's office 2 years ago, and you were sitting there drawing with our daughter. So I apologize. I do know you. We have actually had it's one of those things. But yes, he's from Lacombe, and have looked at not necessarily your candidates, but because I think everyone's waiting for the writ to drop before you actually put in the list of candidates. But there you have good representation on the board, and I'll say from an outside perspective, the fact that I can go in and I can see who your provincial directors are, and I don't have to look and see how you're connected and who's making these decisions, because we just talked about the fact that it's top down in other parties. We know that a certain other party has a husband that's on the selection committee for their board, and for their candidates. We won't mention who. And then other places is like you said, we have a candidate who worked with someone in other places, and then suddenly they're now a candidate, or now they work in the office. So there's a lot of what is the diplomatic word I'm looking for? I would say hypocrisy but it's a lot of
partisanship.
Absolutely. And Les has given the numbers there. Yes, your nominated candidates is lower. I'm hoping that after tonight, and people see the replay and see some of your platform, and with the AGM. It's AGM, correct? This weekend?
AGM and policy, yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that with those happening, more involvement and more people will understand the party more, as opposed to, oh yeah, this is just another option that we could do if we chose to do that sort of thing. So I really appreciate you guys coming on and talking about this. We usually go 90 minutes, so we're getting close to that time. In the closing, we always ask if you have things you want to share, links, anything like that, and we go around for closing comments. So Sue, you have the floor to start.
Oh, nothing like a little pressure, hey? I will say in closing, I do, I have personally worked really hard, and I know our entire board has, and I know every party member has worked incredibly hard to make sure we will be there as a credible alternative to the two polarized parties. And that's critically important for Albertans. I completely agree with the thought that that Carrie had suggested, that it is absolutely plausible for us to have a minority government this time around, in which the Alberta Party could play a critical part in helping good legislation move forward, regardless of where it comes from. So that is our goal. We've got a huge focus as soon as we get our policy conference out of completed and our AGM. We have a huge focus on getting candidates nominated across the province. We do have a lot of people stepping forward. We've had a lot of outreach. We're not having to go look. We've got a lot of people coming to us, and it's been very encouraging. So we're trying to make sure that when people come forward that there is some structure around them so that they're not standing by themselves as a candidate, that they have some support around them. Sometimes that takes a little longer, and that's what we're doing. So I truly appreciate and thank you for the opportunity for us to make our case, frankly, here. And thank
My
you.
pleasure. No problem. Dr. Grace.
Sure. I'm going to piggyback off what Sue said. So, because the Alberta Party is small and kind of dormant for a while, a lot of the CAs have disbanded. And so if people are looking and there's not an Alberta Party CA in their area, they might feel discouraged. Well, when I started looking, there was no CA in Calgary Varsity. And so my husband and I talked to Barry and Jeff at the party and are like, we want to start a CA. How do we do this? So fortunately, we were both friends with Beth Barbary, who ran in Calgary Varsity previously. And she gave us great tips. And we have a CA. We have members. We're about to announce a nomination date. And a nomination opening or whatever. Well, see, that's how naive I am with it, the nomination time period. And yeah, thank you. And, it's just time to get the party started. And so if if there's not one in their area and they're passionate about change like we are, then start one. The packages are ready. The Alberta Party's ready. We're just waiting for other potential candidates to step up and say, yeah, I want to be part of change moving forward. So it's exciting. It's a really exciting time.
Awesome. Jenny, final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. So each of us, I can offer, have of course a Facebook page, and we're on LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter, of course. So Jenny Yeremy or Jennifer Yeremy is how you'd find me. Yeah, I want to reiterate what Sue said in terms of that we're the Alberta Party. I've seen it firsthand is committed to bringing forward quality candidates. And I think that's, to me, it's a really positive thing, to go slow, to go fast, right? To come out, to me, this is the whole thing with the Sovereignty Act being number one out of the gates here. A delayed game will eventually be good, but a game played too early will always be bad, right? And so to me, this is the biggest, this is why I'm so grateful to be associated with a party like this, that is taking their time to make sure that we have quality candidates and not rushing just to have a person in the seat, because ultimately they don't have a voice, right? These are people we want to have, the party wants us to have a voice, so they're making sure we have people that want to put forward some quality ideas for Albertans. So thank you so much again. Really appreciate this, Darren.
Not a problem. Carrie, last to you.
Thanks, Darren. No, I really appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, Carrie.
Yes.
Don't forget to ask for donations. I'm just plugging that right now. I'm sitting here going, how did I forget that? I would be in so much trouble if I didn't kind of plug the fact that we need money to do this. So it's on you. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Well, first of all, I really appreciate the inclusiveness of the Alberta Party. There is a genuine interest by Barry, and as you've heard here tonight, and Holly, of course, is advising on Indigenous issues. So this is about authentic, genuine voices at the table that can have impact on policy and how we go forward. So, and I don't mind sharing some real tangible metrics. I mean, here in Calgary Elbow, as many of you know, Greg Clark served as the MLA. So people voted for an Alberta Party candidate here before. We have a campaign website, teamcundle.com, and of course, albertaparty.ca. And in terms of money, our campaign has already raised $45,000. So this is real. And I anticipate in early 2023, we'll be at about $70,000 for our campaign. So the money is coming in. Now, granted, there's a lot of affluent people in Calgary Elbow with some disposable income, but the money's coming in. I've knocked over 7,000 doors in Calgary Elbow, and we sent out a mail out to all of the people living in multi-unit buildings. So we've reached almost 20,000 homes over the last few months. So this is real. Between the door knocking and the fundraising, the community events, the engagement, this is not, just for fun, or this is a real viable campaign. And I anticipate that other Alberta Party candidates will also be raising money and will also be running viable campaigns. I mean, even look at the results. Not what we wanted in Brooks Medicine Hat, but that is the highest vote percentage-wise that we've seen in Brooks Medicine Hat for the Alberta Party, and the most qualified local candidate we could have hoped for in our leader Barry Morishita. So the tangible results, the metrics are there. The results in 2019 are also an indication of a positive trajectory, where, you know, over 9% of the vote across the province, almost 200,000 people, 87 candidates. So I expect to see 87 candidates again. And I expect to see some local, really viable campaigns going into 2023. So that's what I'm committed to. I'm campaigning full time. And I know my colleagues here tonight are also campaigning full time. So we're putting everything we've got into this to make a difference in this next election. So I'm proud and I'm thankful to all of our volunteers. Oh, and one more metric before we go is people. It's always about people. And we've had over 100 volunteers and supporters on our campaign. So we've had about 25 people who have done canvassing and lit drops for us. We've had over 32 people volunteer at community events. We've had over 50 people donate money, and that's probably more. I need to check with our CFO. So yeah, these over 100 people, and we're just getting warmed up. So, you know, I think that there's a real chance here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this.
Absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree with Ron's comments here. You ladies are all outstanding, and very happy to be in the same group. We're just in the same conversation. This was amazing. I wish you guys all the best going into the AGM and going into the campaign. Yeah, like I said, the door is always open. Barry's welcome to come on with you. You guys can always come in and give us an update. This platform is there. The goal for me is to teach my daughter how to be a good citizen. And I mean, she's doing great things in her school, being a quality citizen. And I want to be that dad that does the same thing. So I think from what I'm seeing tonight, you guys do have a strong future. Excited to see some change come to this province, because it surely needs it. And yes, it is dire. People, you can't just not vote. You have to vote. I'm not going to say mandates on any sort of masks or anything like that. I'll tell you, wear a mask, just because it's a good thing to do. If you're sick, stay home when you can, and just take care of your neighbors, because if you don't take care of your neighbors and don't take care of yourself, everything's just going to crash and burn, and we're going to have nothing left to do. So that is go ahead.
I do have one more thing. Yeah, I just have one more thing. In the spirit of honesty and transparency, Calgary Varsity is not yet campaigning full time because our candidate has not been named. However, you can bet we're working behind the scenes so that when that happens, we're ready to go. So in the spirit of transparency, no full-time campaigning in Calgary Varsity yet, but wait till after Christmas.
Love the transparency, and again, full transparency. You guys, the links are there in the description for the video on YouTube and on Odyssey. So all the links to all the Twitter handles, as well as the Twitter handle to the Alberta Party. AlbertaParty.ca is the website.
Where you take donations?
Yeah, the donations is AlbertaParty.ca /donate. So
Thank you for posting that. Much appreciated.
Hey,
And I
no
just
worries.
want to shout out to Holly Standing Ready, who couldn't be online, but she's put comments in, and the high Indigenous support that the Alberta Party has. Like we're so excited to be learning, to be strong allies, and to be doing the work. So a million thanks to Holly. I've learned so much from you already.
Oh, 100%. And people need to understand, like, for my philosophy, I told Holly this last week, is I in firm belief of land back and reparations with no conditions, and get rid of the monarchy. There's my sort of thing. I'm not going to do a land acknowledgement. I don't think I'm a believer that, yes, we're on stolen land. I'm a settler on stolen land, but I think it's appropriating the culture. If me as a white guy with white privilege does a land acknowledgement, it doesn't do us any good. But if we have Indigenous peoples on the panel, we welcome them to perform those land acknowledgements. We believe in them, but we won't sit there and bastardize the culture that way. Yes, Holly, thank you. We hope to have you on one of these on camera to share the Indigenous perspective going into not only the Alberta Party, but the Indigenous perspective for our communities, because we need more education from our Indigenous peoples. There we go. All right, so now time for the final cell. You can see on the ticker across. You can follow us at ADC Talking Truth, at ADC Truth on Twitter, on TikTok, on Facebook. If you want to support the show, go to ballergear.org and select the Talking Truth collection. We have some really controversial stuff, as well as some good stuff. We have a one that My Alberta Cares about public health care in coffee mugs, hoodies, and t-shirts. And that's one to utilize my position on the AHS board. So it's in colors of AHS, and that's my promise to everyone here that I will utilize my position on the board of AHS to speak truth to power and to ensure that we have a voice for the voiceless when it comes to our Alberta health. Hopefully, what been told to us is actually the truth, and our new administrator, whatever they want to call them, is actually going to do something that streamlines and helps our healthcare system as opposed to currently decimating that we are in. Wish everyone the best. Like I said, good luck this weekend. Good luck going into the election campaign, and wish everyone a great night. And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks.